In October 2024, the small and ordinarily quiet village of Toello in Spain, with a population of less than 50 residents, unexpectedly became the center of a disturbing criminal case that would eventually gain international attention, not because of a local witness or a breakthrough testimony, but thanks to a random Google Street View update. Among the many ordinary images captured that day by the camera-mounted vehicle, one frame stood out. It showed a man dressed in a dark blue jacket, worn-out jeans, and brown work boots, standing beside a grey sedan, lifting a large white plastic bag into the vehicle's open trunk. The bag's unusual shape triggered immediate suspicion among investigators, as its bulky and contoured form bore an eerie resemblance to a human body. That suspicion would soon be confirmed in one of the most unexpected ways imaginable. The victim turned out to be Jorge Luis Perez, a 32-year-old Cuban national who had disappeared nearly a year earlier in November 2023, after living in the nearby town of Sora with a woman he had recently entered into a relationship with. Jorge's last contact with his family was a puzzling message, informing them that he was leaving Sora and would no longer use his current phone. The sudden and unexplained communication was deeply troubling to his relatives, who had grown increasingly concerned when weeks turned into months without any further word. One of his cousins eventually reported his disappearance to local authorities, triggering an investigation that sadly yielded no results. There were no witnesses, no suspects, no CCTV footage, and no usable clues, leading the case to go cold by early 2024. It wasn't until an investigator stumbled upon the newly published Street View imagery in November 2024 that the case was suddenly revived. Another image from the same sequence revealed a crucial development. The same man, wearing the exact same dark blue jacket, jeans, and boots, was captured just minutes earlier, pushing a wheelbarrow containing what appeared to be the same white plastic bag along the road. This second image prompt added a vital layer to the case by showing not only the bag's movement through the town, but also establishing a visual timeline of the man's actions. Authorities immediately traced the vehicle's license plate, identifying the man as Manuel Isla Gallardo, a 48-year-old employee at a municipal office in a neighboring town. With no previous criminal record and a reputation as a calm, courteous resident, Manuel initially seemed an unlikely suspect. However, the gravity of the Street View images could not be ignored, especially considering the stark implication of the bag's contents. Though the photos weren't enough for a direct arrest, they justified placing Manuel under close surveillance. Over the following weeks, police wiretapped his communications and monitored his behavior, hoping to uncover any connections between him and Jorge. Their efforts paid off when they discovered that Manuel had been romantically involved with the same woman Jorge had been living with in Sora, exposing a tangled and potentially dangerous love triangle. Further investigation revealed disturbing messages and private exchanges suggesting jealousy and emotional manipulation, hinting that Jorge's removal may have been deliberate and premeditated. With sufficient cause, police secured a warrant to search Manuel's home and property. The search yielded traces of blood, cleaning supplies, and personal items that once belonged to Jorge. The evidence pointed toward foul play, and on November 11, 2024, both Manuel and his partner, the unnamed woman, were taken into custody. The arrest was followed by Manuel's partial confession, in which he admitted to disposing of Jorge's body, but downplayed his direct involvement in the death. Forensic analysis and timeline inconsistencies suggested otherwise, and the testimony led investigators to a rural cemetery, roughly 15 minutes from the Street View image location. There, Jorge's body was recovered, buried in an unmarked plot. Without the visual evidence provided by the Street View car, it's likely this hidden grave would never have been found. Adding to the improbability of the case was the fact that the Street View car hadn't visited Toello in over 15 years, and yet, on that single day, it passed through the town just as a major crime was unfolding in the captured images, one showing the man wheeling the body-shaped bag down a narrow road, and the next showing him placing it into the trunk, both with consistent clothing and location, became the turning point in the investigation. Prosecutors now consider these visuals among the most vital pieces of evidence for the upcoming trial. The residents of Toello, stunned by the events, expressed disbelief that such a horrific act had occurred in their own backyard without anyone noticing. Most remembered Manuel as reserved and polite, and none could have imagined him involved in something so dark. Journalists, police officers, and curious observers descended upon the tiny village in the days after the arrests, transforming it from a sleepy hamlet to the epicenter of a national conversation about surveillance, privacy, and digital evidence. Jorge's family, heartbroken yet relieved, finally received closure. Though nothing could undo the loss, they found solace in knowing what had happened and seeing justice pursued. They credited divine timing and fattened even the Google car itself for helping bring the truth to light. Manuel and his accomplice now face multiple charges, including kidnapping, murder, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to commit homicide, and are currently awaiting trial set for mid-2025. The prosecution has made it clear that the two image prompts, showing Manuel in the same blue jacket and jeans, first pushing the bag and then loading it into his car, will serve as the visual backbone of their argument. The story of Jorge Luis Perez is one of betrayal, loss, and justice interrupted and restored by technology. In a time when so many crimes go unseen or unsolved, it is the impassive lens of a camera, not a human witness, that became the hero of the investigation. The odds of the car being there at that moment were minuscule, yet it captured two critical phases of the crime, transforming what should have been ordinary street imagery into a silent testimony of murder. As legal experts and crime analysts continue to study the case, many have cited it as a landmark example of how accidental surveillance can change the course of justice. Tueo, forever marked by this event, may never feel quite as quiet again, but for Jorge and his grieving family, what matters most is that the truth was found and recorded, quite literally, in plain sight. In April 2024, the peaceful rhythm of daily life in Bordeaux, France, was violently disrupted by the unexplained disappearance of 27-year-old Priscilla Brutin, a soft-spoken photography enthusiast, known in her neighborhood for her warm personality and artistic eye. She had left her shared apartment on a routine errand and never returned, sparking immediate concern from her roommate, who reported her missing by nightfall. The initial police investigation yielded no clues, no sightings, no digital trail, and no signs of struggle. As days turned to weeks, her family and friends clung to hope, but the case began to stall. Then, months later, an unlikely lead surfaced when Google updated its Street View imagery for a small section of Bordeaux, and one frame from a quiet street 2 blocks from Priscilla's last known location caught the attention of an online true crime forum user. In that image, a man in a grey hoodie, dark cargo pants, and white sneakers was captured dragging a large black duffel bag along the pavement. The way he gripped the bag with noticeable strain and careful control, and the unnatural sag of its contents, raised alarm. The man's face was partially obscured by the hoodie's drawstring, but his build, posture, and clothes were clearly visible. Intrigued and disturbed, the online user shared the image widely, and it quickly went viral, prompting journalists and ultimately law enforcement to re-examine the area. Upon closer inspection, a second Google Street View image emerged from just moments later, this time showing the same man, in the same grey hoodie and outfit, now crossing the street with the same black bag, heading toward an abandoned warehouse complex that had been shuttered for years. These two visual data points created a compelling timeline and strongly implied that something or someone was being transported with intent. Acting on this discovery, authorities identified the man as Lucien Marescio, a 35-year-old part-time delivery driver with a troubling background. Although he had never been convicted, Lucien had a documented history of harassment complaints, mostly involving women he had followed or photographed in public. Armed with a warrant, police searched his apartment, where they discovered disturbing evidence: women's clothing not belonging to anyone he knew, dozens of candid photos of various women around Bordeaux, including several of Priscilla's DNA traces that matched samples taken from her home. During questioning, Lucien admitted to knowing who Priscilla was, claiming he admired her from afar, but insisting he had no involvement in her disappearance. His statements were contradictory and increasingly evasive, especially when confronted with the Street View images. A search of the abandoned warehouse, now treated as a potential crime scene, uncovered human remains buried beneath loose flooring in a secluded back chamber. Forensic analysis confirmed the worst. It was Priscilla Brutin. The remains showed signs of blunt force trauma, and the time of death aligned with the day she vanished. Lucien was arrested and formally charged with kidnapping, unlawful confinement, and first-degree murder. The street view images were central to the prosecution's case, especially the clear image of Lucien dragging the heavy duffel bag in the first scene and the second image showing him wearing the same clothes while walking in the direction of the warehouse, a sequence of events that couldn't be explained away as coincidence. Forensic evidence strengthened the narrative. Priscilla's DNA was found under Lucien's fingernails, and duct tape bearing her hair was recovered from his apartment. Further, a security camera from a nearby store, while grainy, showed a man in a grey hoodie purchasing duct tape and gloves just hours before Priscilla disappeared. Though the footage wasn't crystal clear, it added weight to the growing case against him. As the story gained national attention, Priscilla's name became a rallying point for discussions about digital surveillance, safety, and justice. The courtroom was packed throughout Lucien's trial, with both the defense and prosecution referencing the street view images as pivotal. Prosecutors highlighted the continuity of Lucien's appearance, the same hoodie, pants, sneakers, and bag across two separate moments, framing it as an unintentional but undeniable confession caught on camera. The defense tried to argue that the bag's contents were unknown and that no direct video existed of the act itself, but the forensic and circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. Ultimately, Lucien was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The judge called the crime calculated, predatory, and cowardly, commending the public for their vigilance and the unusual yet vital role played by technology. Outside the courthouse, Priscilla's family expressed both sorrow and gratitude, heartbroken by her loss, yet thankful for the community, the investigators, and the unknown internet user who spotted the bag in the image. Bordeaux officials responded by increasing neighborhood patrols, funding a public awareness campaign, and installing more city surveillance in low-visibility areas. In Priscilla's memory, her family hosted an outdoor gallery of her photography, displaying her best work in parks across the city, and launched a scholarship for young women studying forensic science and visual media. Her story became a symbol of how even silent, impersonal machines, like a passing Google car, can help fight injustice when humans pay attention. The two street view images, while never meant to capture a crime, became the silent witnesses that helped tell a story Priscilla couldn't. Her voice may have been taken, but her truth was revealed not by confession, but by a grey hoodie, a black duffel bag, and two frozen frames of time. In July 2024, a disturbing mystery unfolded in the heart of Mexico City, where an abandoned lot on the city's outskirts became the epicenter of a case that would ultimately highlight the unintentional power of digital surveillance in revealing hidden crimes. The case began when Google updated its street view imagery for a stretch of land in the Colonia Doctors neighborhood, a place known for its derelict buildings and rising crime rates. One image in particular stood out to a local journalist researching urban decay. It showed a man in a white tank top, light-washed jeans, and tan sandals standing beside a large oil drum in a vacant lot partially enclosed by crumbling walls. At first glance, the scene appeared mundane, but closer inspection revealed a second, horrifying detail: what looked like a human hand protruding from the drum. The man's face was partially turned away from the camera, but his clothing, stance, and surroundings were unmistakable. The photo quickly circulated online, sparking concern and leading local activists to alert authorities. At first, investigators were skeptical, suggesting the image could be a prank or a misinterpretation. However, the intensity of online scrutiny pushed them to examine the site. When they arrived at the exact coordinates captured by the Street View car, they found the oil drum still in place, though it had been moved several meters, and immediately noticed the strong smell of decomposition. Upon opening the drum, forensic specialists discovered severed human remains, later identified through fingerprints as belonging to 41-year-old Ernesto Cales, a mid-level accountant who had gone missing nearly 2 weeks earlier after attending a company party. His family had filed a report, but with no leads or ransom demands. The case had grown cold until the Street View image reignited it. As investigators examined the surroundings, they discovered a second Street View image, captured from a slightly different angle, showing the same man, still in the white tank top, now appearing to look over his shoulder as he adjusts the lid of the oil drum, with a black plastic tarp folded nearby. This detail, his unchanged appearance across both images, the consistent setting, and his interaction with the drum became critical in establishing a timeline. The man was quickly identified as Diego Salinas, a 29-year-old local mechanic with suspected ties to a regional cartel, but no previous arrests. Authorities brought Diego in for questioning, and while he initially denied any involvement, forensic evidence told another story. Traces of Ernesto's blood were found on Diego's boots, and security footage from a nearby gas station showed Diego purchasing fuel in a red canister the night Ernesto disappeared. Witnesses came forward stating they saw Diego arguing with Ernesto at the party, and phone records placed both men in the same location shortly after. When pressed, Diego confessed to killing Ernesto during a drunken dispute and attempting to dispose of the body in a method reminiscent of narco-style executions. The court proceedings were swift and emotionally charged. Prosecutors used the two street view images as key exhibits, emphasizing the unintentional yet irrefutable visual timeline. The first image showing Diego standing beside the drum, and the second capturing him mid-motion while interacting with it, both wearing the same white tank top, jeans, and tan sandals, all taken within minutes. Forensic experts testified that the condition of Ernesto's remains confirmed his death occurred during the window suggested by the images. The judge allowed the street view captures as evidence due to their time-stamped authenticity and geographic accuracy. Diego was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder and abuse of a corpse, sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. The case received national coverage, sparking debates about the role of public imagery in crime solving, with some applauding technology's ability to reveal truth, while others voiced concern over privacy implications. In Mexico City, public trust in digital platforms increased, and advocacy groups began using mapping tools to monitor high-crime zones. Ernesto's family, though devastated, expressed gratitude to the anonymous user who flagged the image and to the journalists who kept the story alive. They held a public vigil outside the abandoned lot, turning it into a makeshift memorial, later transformed by local officials into a community garden named Jardín de la Verdad, the Garden of Truth. The two street view images became symbols of silent witnesses, revealing how even the most mundane snapshots can capture moments of darkness hidden in plain sight. Without them, Ernesto Cales might have remained a missing person, buried beneath the indifference of bureaucracy and fear. But thanks to an inadvertent photograph, the truth was unearthed one frame at a time. In early October 2024, the disappearance of 32-year-old fitness instructor Camille Hart during her routine morning jog along the Coconut Grove waterfront in Miami sent shockwaves through the city. Known for her consistency, Camille's sudden absence was reported within hours by her partner, who became concerned when she failed to return and did not respond to any messages. Police initiated a search, canvassing nearby parks and the Bayfront Trail, but found no evidence of foul play, no signs of a struggle, no dropped belongings, no witnesses. It wasn't until a month later, when Google updated its Street View coverage in the area, that an amateur sleuth from a true crime subreddit noticed something alarming. In one panoramic image taken near a dense grove of palm trees adjacent to the jogging path, a man in a black running suit with red side stripes and black gloves could be seen standing partially hidden, staring directly at the camera from the shadows not far from him. In the same frame, a woman in a bright blue athletic tank top and neon green shorts matching Camille's last known outfit was jogging past, her head turned slightly as if reacting to something off-frame. The distance between the two was minimal, and though it wasn't immediately clear what was happening, the man's expressionless stare and concealed posture raised alarm. Even more chilling was a second Street View image, captured seconds later, from a different angle, showing the same man, in the same outfit, now walking briskly in the opposite direction, dragging what appeared to be a long object wrapped in a blue tarp, toward a wooded service road. The woman was no longer visible. These two images went viral, prompting immediate media coverage and renewed police interest. Detectives re-examined Camille's fitness tracker data and confirmed her last recorded location aligned with the spot shown in the Street View photos. A forensic search of the service road and surrounding woods uncovered traces of Camille's blood on tree bark and a broken smartwatch buried in shallow dirt. DNA evidence matched both Camille and an unknown male. Working from the visual profile in the Street View image, authorities eventually identified the man as Jordan Rivas, a 36-year-old personal trainer with a history of aggression toward female clients and a restraining order filed by a former gym member. Surveillance from nearby marinas confirmed his presence in the area. The same morning, Camille vanished. During interrogation, Jordan initially denied everything but quickly faltered when presented with the street view photos showing him wearing the distinct black jogging suit with red stripes and glove systems found during a search of his apartment. Camille's body was eventually discovered weighted beneath a marina dock, wrapped in the same blue tarp seen in the second image, with bruises and signs of asphyxiation. The prosecution relied heavily on the two street view images, the first showing Camille jogging near Jordan, and the second showing him dragging a tarp-covered object in the same clothes, just minutes apart. These visuals, combined with timeline, reconstruction, blood evidence, and a motive rooted in rejected advances, painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. Jordan was found guilty of first-degree murder, unlawful confinement, and obstruction of justice. The judge referenced the street view images in his closing remarks, calling them silent witnesses to a predator's calculated movements. In the aftermath, Camille's story ignited debates around women's safety in public spaces, the power of open access, surveillance, and the ethical implications of tech-driven investigations. Miami officials responded by adding more patrols, emergency call stations, and trailside cameras across public fitness paths. Camille's family, devastated yet determined, established the Camille Hart Foundation to support tech-assisted missing persons cases and victim advocacy. Her name became synonymous with both tragedy and change. The too haunting street view captures the man watching from the shadows and later, dragging away the evidence remain etched in the digital archives, proving that sometimes justice comes not from eyewitnesses, but from the unblinking eye of a passing car with a camera. In late October 2024, in the heart of Brooklyn's Bushwick neighborhood, a chilling crime unfolded in broad daylight that would only come to light after a routine Google Street View update inadvertently captured the moment a woman was violently abducted off the sidewalk. 26-year-old graduate student and barista, Maya Trujillo, had just left her apartment on Knickerbocker Avenue, walking toward the subway station, when she vanished without a trace. Friends reported her missing the same evening when she didn't show up for her late shift at the cafe or respond to messages. Police initially suspected she may have left voluntarily, but her phone was found discarded in a nearby trash can, and CCTV in the area had a blind spot that covered a short stretch of the street, coincidentally the same block where Maya had last been seen. The investigation stalled until a few weeks later when a Brooklyn-based artist using Street View for a digital mural project noticed something strange. In one image captured from the middle of the block, a grey utility van with tinted windows is parked at the curb, its sliding side door wide open, and a man in a green hoodie, black jeans, and white sneakers is seen standing partially outside the van, forcefully grabbing a woman wearing a maroon jacket, black leggings, and red Converse sneakers. The woman's arm is outstretched, her body leaning backward in visible resistance. Her facial expression is a blur due to Street View's privacy filter, but the posture and physical tension were unmistakable. Just a few meters ahead in the same frame, another pedestrian appears to be turning round, as if startled by the noise. A second Street View image, captured from a slightly different angle seconds later, shows the same man now closing the van door, his green hoodie and white sneakers clearly visible, while the woman is no longer present. Police were immediately notified. After confirming the Street View timestamps and coordinates matched Maya's last known location and outfit, a task force was assembled to track down the van. License plate searches failed due to pixelation, but the van's unique bumper sticker and obscure punk band logo lead authorities to a series of social media posts that ultimately identified the vehicle as belonging to Colton Virelli, a 38-year-old handyman with a prior conviction for assault and suspected links to a human trafficking ring operating along the East Coast. Virelli had been seen in the area days before Maya's disappearance, doing renovation work on a local studio. A search warrant executed at his residence uncovered Maya's scarf, duct tape with her hair on it, and a burner phone containing threatening messages sent to an unknown number. Under interrogation, Virelli confessed to abducting Maya and delivering her to an apartment where she was to be held for transport out of state. A SWAT team raided the address within hours and found Maya alive but bound and sedated. She was hospitalized and later reunited with her family. The Street View images became the foundation of the prosecution's case. The first image showing the abduction in progress with clothing and van features clearly identifiable, and the second showing the suspect closing the door in the same green hoodie, black jeans, and white sneakers. Forensic experts verified the timeline and direction of the photos, correlating perfectly with Maya's digital footprint. In court, the defense attempted to dismiss the images as coincidental or doctored, but Google provided official confirmation of the metadata, time, and location, sealing their authenticity. Varelli was convicted of kidnapping, attempted trafficking, and unlawful restraint, receiving a 50-year sentence without parole. Maya's case drew nationwide attention and reignited discussions about urban surveillance, ethical data use, and community vigilance. Advocates praised the unintentional heroism of the Street View car, whose passive lens had prevented a tragedy. In the aftermath, legislation was proposed to improve public awareness around digital safety tools, and Maya herself became an advocate for survivor protection laws. Her resilience, paired with two haunting images, one of her being taken, the other of her captors sealing her fate, transformed her story into one of survival, justice, and the unexpected power of technology in the face of evil. In November 2024, the final case in what media dubbed the Google Street View crime wave emerged from a quiet residential neighborhood in Sacramento, California, where a brutal domestic violence incident escalated into murder and was inadvertently captured by a passing Street View car. 34-year-old Rosa Martinez had filed multiple complaints against her estranged husband, Arturo Martinez, a former security guard with a documented history of abuse and a restraining order that had recently expired. Rosa had been living with her sister while attempting to secure full custody of her two children, and on the morning of November 17th, she was walking with her kids to a nearby elementary school. Witnesses later reported seeing a red pickup truck with a dented tailgate slowly driving behind her. What they didn't know at the time was that Arturo was behind the wheel, violating court orders by approaching Rosa and tracking her every move. Rosa, dressed in a light gray sweater, blue jeans, and white sneakers, clutched the hands of her children, attempting to ignore the truck trailing them. Google's Street View car happened to pass through this suburban block at that very moment, capturing a scene of eerie normalcy just seconds before tragedy struck. In the first image, a man in a dark brown jacket, black pants, and tan work boots is seen exiting the red truck, his posture stiff and deliberate, eyes locked on Rosa. She is visible several feet ahead, turning her head slightly over her shoulder. The children walk closely beside her, unaware of the escalating danger. In the second image, captured mere seconds later from a new position, the same man is seen sprinting toward Rosa, now only a few steps away, as she instinctively shields her children. Bystanders out of frame would later testify to hearing screams. Rosa was stabbed multiple times in broad daylight as horrified neighbors rushed in. Police arrived within minutes, but Arturo had already fled. Rosa was pronounced dead at the scene. Miraculously, her children were physically unharmed. The Street View images quickly became pivotal to the investigation. The man's identity was confirmed as Arturo Martinez, with the dark brown jacket and tan work boots matching clothing found during a raid of a storage unit he had rented under a false name. The red truck's damaged tailgate, visible in both photos, matched surveillance images from local traffic cameras, further tying Arturo to the scene. Forensic analysis of the images established a precise timeline, corroborated by witness video from a Ring doorbell that captured Arturo's escape route. A multi-state manhunt ensued, and Arturo was found 3 days later in Reno, Nevada, hiding in a motel under a stolen identity. He was extradited to California and charged with first-degree murder, child endangerment, and violation of a court order. The Street View images were introduced as evidence during pre-trial hearings, with the first showing his approach from the truck, and the second showing him lunging toward Rosa. Though blurred, the emotional weight of the images left a lasting impact on the court and the public. Rosa's family launched the Shield Her campaign in her honor, advocating for stronger enforcement of restraining orders and real-time alert systems for victims of domestic violence. The tragic sequence, immortalized unintentionally by a passing car's camera, demonstrated the stark limits of legal protection and the unpredictable reach of technology. Rosa's children, now in therapy and under the care of her sister, remember their mother's bravery in shielding them during those final moments. Sacramento erected a memorial bench on that sidewalk, engraved with her name and the words, "Love does not harm." the case closed the series of horrifying Street View documented crimes, each one revealing not only the dark edges of society, but also the unexpected ways that technology, even unintentionally, can aid in truth, justice, and remembrance.